The patrol lights painted the side mirrors in red and blue as I sat frozen behind the wheel. My hands were still on the steering column when the officer stepped out, his presence heavy and decisive. He moved fast, voice sharp, gun drawn, not aimed at my head directly, but positioned in a way that left no doubt about control. "Step out." Slowly. I obeyed before fear could turn into resistance. The pavement felt colder than it should have. Neighbors were watching from windows. Someone had already called in a report about a crash blocks away. A pedestrian struck, a car speeding away. The description matched my vehicle. The description matched me. It was not my crash. I knew exactly who had been driving earlier that evening. My sister had borrowed my car without asking. She returned it damaged, shaken, and silent. When I confronted her, she cried, not about the accident, but about consequences. Our parents arrived quickly after. The conversation shifted fast. Blame needed a target. I became that target. "Take the fall," my father had said quietly. "You were in the car." He framed it as protection for the family name, as control, as sacrifice. I did not argue. When the officer searched the interior, he found traces, fragments of glass, a scratch along the bumper, a loose phone charger that didn't belong to me. Evidence that pointed outward but did not tell the full story. Questions were asked. My answers were limited. I did not accuse anyone. I let the handcuffs click around my wrists. Metal against skin. The sound felt final. Across town, lights were brighter and voices were louder. My sister stood between my parents in the living room, replaying a version of events where I had been reckless and careless. They spoke about lawyers, about damage control, about how things would blow over once I accepted responsibility. They toasted quietly, relief disguised as gratitude. They believed I would absorb the consequences. At the station, hours passed in silence. An investigator reviewed the report again. A different officer returned to examine inconsistencies in the timeline. Surveillance footage from a nearby shop had been requested. The footage did not show the driver clearly, but it showed something important. A figure exiting the driver's seat moments before the crash site was approached by witnesses. The posture, the height, the jacket. It did not match me. The investigator leaned closer to the screen, replaying the clip. Questions shifted. Who was actually driving? For the first time that night, my silence was not protection for them, it was protection for myself. I answered honestly. I gave names. I described the argument earlier. I explained why I had allowed the lie to stand. Authority moved with documented precision. Phone records were checked. Location data was requested. My sister's device pinned near the crash scene at the exact estimated time of impact. Witnesses were re-interviewed. One remembered seeing a woman step out of the driver's side quickly before disappearing into the dark. The investigation pivoted. The turning point did not arrive with anger or shouting. It came with paperwork and confirmation. An officer returned to the holding room and removed the handcuffs. "You're being released. Charges will be redirected." The words were factual, neutral, final. Control shifted not because I fought, but because evidence forced clarity. The system corrected itself once truth became visible. I walked out of the station under quiet lights, wrists free but mind heavy. My phone buzzed with missed calls. Messages from my parents, messages from my sister. The tone had changed, panic replaced certainty. They had assumed I would protect them forever. Now protection had ended. I did not rush home. I did not confront them immediately. Instead, I sat in my car, the same vehicle that had carried their secret and my supposed guilt. The damage from the crash was still visible. The responsibility for repair would still fall somewhere. But it would not fall on me. When I finally returned, the atmosphere had shifted. Accusations were no longer directed at me. My sister avoided eye contact. My father attempted justification. My mother searched my face for sympathy that no longer came easily. There was no shouting, no dramatic confession, only recognition that trust had cracked beyond repair. I told them I would handle my own legal protection. I told them I would no longer absorb decisions made in fear or convenience. They heard the distance in my voice. The celebration they had prepared turned into an uncomfortable silence, a mirror of the silence I had carried through interrogation. I did not demand punishment. I did not seek revenge. The consequences followed naturally from truth. What remained between us was fragile, not because of anger, but because of exposure. They had chosen survival over honesty. I had chosen silence over betrayal. And when authority intervened, it did not restore family, it restored facts. That difference changed everything. Should I continue with a sequel or focus on the aftermath deeper?